So my goodness, hello Jenna from Washington, DC. Right? You're in
Yeah.
Washington or you're in Virginia right now?
I'm in Virginia for the time being, yeah.
That's crazy. And meanwhile, you have
Mm.
a group of schools in South Africa. How did you land up in Virginia? Were you traveling or did you land up
Yes.
being stuck? Are you stuck?
A little bit of both. You start out with the traveling, but amongst the COVID-19 situation, you end up being stuck.
And you're going on
That's
3 months? I understand. 2 months.
that's correct. I'm going on my third month now, so I think I'll be stuck for a little bit longer than I anticipated, but it's a good type of stuck.
Because I see the little magic in the belly. Congratulations on that.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So the reason I wanted to talk to you today, I absolutely love your insights when it comes to all things education. 10 years ago, you went on a journey to rethink education, and you built the most incredible group called the Little Ashford Preschool Group. And today I know you have about 16 campuses. It was 10 years ago when you started this journey, and 10 years later, you have this incredible outlay of schools that you're still involved in right now. Am I right?
Oh, that's correct. 16 schools to be correct. 16 sites in and around Johannesburg and Pretoria area, but definitely that's the case.
So, but what I want to know is because of COVID, the little ones are at home with us and not with you guys, the professionals. How is the school dealing with it? Because I can speak your ear off about how parents are dealing with it right now.
Well, I can tell you that our staff is certainly not on holiday. They've just had to adapt relatively quickly to new ways of refocusing their attention on the children and their parents. Apart from quickly trying to devise online curriculums that are suitable to stimulate children, they've had to adapt on how best to communicate online as quickly and effectively as possible and in the most relevant way with parents. I think during this time, the most important thing actually to make a parent efficient and effective is the support you give them.
Mhm.
More so than what they're doing with their children. Children will grow irrespective of the pace at which you push them. And that's what parents tend to forget. Within the ECD space, play is still very important. Integrating schoolwork into your life is possible. Not looking at them as two separate things and offering your child an experience that's different. There's so many ways to go about it, but we certainly, assist our parents and support our parents in delivering those curriculums to the children.
As a parent, right, I'm feeling
Mm.
completely overwhelmed by that responsibility, right? But at the same time, I can't help but stop and say, well, perhaps the responsibility of educating and raising a child is not solely the responsibility of the school anyway. And maybe
Mm.
this is a harsh reminder for us parents to be a part of stimulating those young minds. And we should be grateful, I suppose, to have the support of experts such as yourselves. And I know your area of expertise is certainly the foundation level or the early development level, so you would understand, and primary. Most of the times I feel like I'm letting my son down though. I've got all of the curriculum from the school, but I feel like I'm letting him down. Is there anything specific that we should be doing if translating the curriculum is difficult?
I think it's, this time period here is a trial period for everybody. There's no perfect answer to that for parents. I think parents are giving themselves a hard time naturally, and they shouldn't be. To a certain extent, hopefully we, achieve some form of normality. The children will catch up. We will get smarter in terms of how we disseminate information to the
Yeah.
parent. Currently we felt that we overloaded, for example, the parents with too much information. And the feedback was, well, I don't have time to do this. And we adapted. We took their feedback in and we simplified what we were sending them, and we made it better learning. I think parents are generally being too hard on themselves. And I think social media groups aren't helping because there are some parents who have all the time in the world and they just want to show up as heroes. Kids grow at their own pace. We don't handle them the same way. So it's impossible for you to compare yourself to a super mom who's got it all down and feel depressed because your child is not achieving or moving at the same pace as theirs. I think that the involvement from our side will escalate in that we're getting more comfortable with the technologies around us, like using Zoom phone calls for storytelling. So we will start slowly but surely taking back what belongs to us from the parent. If we log in and have a story time instead of telling you to do the story time, if we log in if we log in and do the physical ed session instead of telling you to do the physical ed, we're just getting a grasp on this new normal, so
Right.
to speak.
And speaking of new normals, though, I think certainly for me, what this time is showing me is that remote learning, firstly, is possible. Whether or not it is palatable to the recipient, in other words, the child who's going through the learning process, that part remains to be seen. But from your perspective, do you see more and more schools developing as remote learning institutions, and the schools that are currently in the networks that currently exist, do you see them maybe sticking to just the vanilla curriculum at school and then maybe experimenting with other methodologies, learning curriculums? I don't know. Do you see this sustaining and changing fundamentally how we educate?
Look, it would be significantly sad if we lost human touch and human connections. I think a lot of that, especially in the foundation phases, is what builds our basic humanity. I can't feel compassionate about you simply by looking at an online video. I need to experience such social interaction. Confidence is not about being behind. I mean, you would know, and I would know that on social media, the people who lack the most confidence may be the ones who are posting the best, most confident looking photos. Those are there's unrealistic expectations on social media that are not real. And the reality is we still need that interaction. So functionally, I think that we will adapt a lot in terms of how we deliver a service. But I think that as time goes by and we somehow get used to this virus or address the issues around this virus and we go back to society, we're going to have to find ways to remain emotionally and socially connected. We have to, because that's what our kids need to survive. That's how we've been surviving over the past hundreds and thousands of years.
And the skills that you mentioned, the social skills, quite incredibly, are exactly the ones that are required in the workplace today. You need people that have these kind of social skills, the ability to collaborate, to work in teams, that exhibit confidence, are critical thinkers or problem solvers, and all of those things happen through human interaction. So a part of me agrees with you that it would be a sad day if the process of learning was devoid completely of human touch. As you know, I run the Innovator Gap Year program, and we've had to adapt to this kind of platform for learning, and these students are much older than yours. They're between 18 and 29, and a month in they're already complaining. They miss it. It's great to have the opportunity to learn online, and it allows you to learn at your own pace and learn what you want to learn when you want to learn it, but it does not take away the need for feeding off the energy in the room and peer-to-peer learning.
Like I said, on the online platform, there's a lot of edited conversation. It's not natural. It's not, you don't feel the energies, you don't feel the joy, you don't see the running, you don't see the accidents happening around. That's all part of human life and, again, humanity. And it's so important for our kids. Our kids develop through all sensory organs, sense of touch, sense of smells, the sense of being, what they see around them. It's not just the online environment that is so predictable. It's everything that's unpredictable around them as well that makes them grow at such an exponential rate, irrespective of their age, even if it's 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, or so. That's definitely going to settle in as a challenge, and I'm curious to even see how kids go back to school in such a time where social distancing, wearing masks, not touching each other, not holding your friend's hands and running across and sliding on the same slide will become impacted.
You touch on something important. I mean, it's the Department of Basic Education that proposed these changes, that even when schools go back, we have to observe social distancing.
Yeah, I think at some point we'd have to observe our level of risks. And I think with this whole pandemic will come a time where we, risk oriented.
Yeah.
But it would ride with all the solutions that would be presented, whether there's vaccines developed or medication or whatever the case may be. And I think as a nation, we've also been privileged enough to be less afraid, because this is affecting children and the younger, age groups a lot less than it is as adults and the older age groups who need more protection.
So then I have to ask you the sticky question, because it is a reality right now. There's a play and a tension between parents and schools when it comes to perceived value being delivered at this time, and therefore willingness and ability to pay fees at this time, right? So by perceived value, for most parents, it feels like, but now wait a minute, you're making me teach, right? I have to be home working, running the household, and now teaching as well. So what value is the school delivering at this time that I have to pay for? And we've heard of some countries anecdotally who have reduced automatically the school fees for this period, which has definitely kept those parents more responsive and willing to work with the school at this time. But in South Africa, I don't think we've seen that.
Well, there is a few schools. We certainly have done that. We've given our parents a 25% reduction in fees, and we continue to monitor the situation best we can. We understand the financial implications that they are confronted with. So we feel that we could, certain costs would have been reduced during this period in any case, because of the lack of attendance at the school. So we pass that on to them, just to assist a little bit. But nevertheless, I can tell you right now that we've never worked harder. It's like starting a new course in varsity that you've never done in your life.
Is there a view that you have in terms of the opportunity that this crisis brings for us to rethink curriculum in the mainstream way? In other words, is this a time where we bring a closer alignment, right, between mainstream school and ultimately with where the world is going? So we breed a different type of student instead of holding on so dearly to a curriculum that is 300 years old. Do we have the opportunity to say, we want to breed the kind of people that have, I don't know, different specialized schools for creatives, for STEM people, for EQ, for whatever, where we focus on raising the whole child and bringing out of them what is their innate abilities, as opposed to putting into them the IQ skills for careers that may not exist in the very near future.
Well, as this virus has shown us, and these moments, things we never thought would exist right now are already starting to exist. The online classroom is going to become more and more a necessity, a lifestyle part of who we are. So we cannot ignore the fact that we need to equip our young people to be able to manage themselves in those situations. So that spirit of the use of online technology is definitely not going away. That's the 21st century child. That's the 21st century individual. We cannot. I cannot foresee that it's going to get any easier. I think we are going to get into a space where we do become a lot more distant in terms of learning, development, education, work, whatever the case may be. And I think this is almost an experiment to say that it is possible that this could essentially happen. You go do your work at home as long as it's done. Somehow for a lot of companies, this is working and working out to be a lot more effective and efficient as well.
But so, it does show that our minds, because we turn and adapt to change at such a slow rate, and we hang on to things that have worked for us before and we don't want to change
Mm.
them. And now look at us, right? What we thought, like you said, what we thought was impossible. Like, how are we going to measure productivity if people are working from home? People are just going to,
Mm.
and it's like, well, work, how do you define work and how do you define productivity? And I think this big experiment is teaching us a lot of things about ourselves. But the point about technology and children, I've seen how the addiction to gadgets, which in part is facilitated by us parents, right? We facilitate and we enable kids to be stuck on their gadgets all the time. And the average child now in the burbs has 4 to 5 gadgets, right? The phone, the laptops, the iPads, the games, and ultimately it does breed a level of addiction. And I've seen some kids who are used to playing games on the phone and having to do a real life puzzle, and they start parting the pieces, like you would on the screen. um,
Mm.
at the early stages, is there something to be said about the dangers of technology and kids? Because we're busy, so it is easy for us to hide behind the many gadgets that we buy them, but are there any dangers that we're exposing them to?
You have to create a balanced life for your children, just like you create one for yourself. And parents shy away from planning. Planning is key. Dedicate certain times to what you do and how you do things with your kids. And if you stick to those times and those timelines and place for everything, and if we can't manage that education around our own children, then we are already in for a disaster altogether, gadget or not. So it's important for us to make sure that they have enough sleep time, that their sleep is monitored, that they don't stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning on an iPad. So all of that is our responsibility. I find that these days a lot of the parents leave too much responsibility on their children. So you've got to let them be creative all on their own, and find their moments of rest, their moments of peace, their moments of interaction, socialization, and their moments to use their
Failure.
gadget, and not to feel threatened by gadgets or no, none of that. And irrespective of the moods they give you, you've got to instill those disciplines.
Right.
And it's the only way that you're going to have happier children that are very well balanced. And it's not that easy. It's easy to get around just giving them whatever they need, but or whatever they want.
Yeah.
But we've got to move from that space, knowing that it's our responsibility as parents to raise them properly. It's a lovely conversation to have these current times. So thanks for having me
And
on
hopefully you'll be
your.
back in South Africa soon.